Hey, what's up, everybody? So, the last episode we left off with Jean Grey sacrificing herself on Uncanny X-Men issue 137. That was kind of like the end of the story arc, with that was the most famous X-Men story arc being the Dark Phoenix. She sacrificed herself, basically turning into like ashes. So, if you want to know how that happened or why it happened, go back to the previous episode, being episode 16. And now here is October of 1980, and this is issue 138. So this is basically like the aftermath of the Dark Phoenix. So it's kind of like the end of the story arc where you just see everybody having a funeral for Jean Grey. And everybody's in mourning. She has died. And this is like the second time she has sacrificed herself. And we have the funeral, and you see Cyclops feeling like shit. She's gone, and he's reminiscing all the good times and bad times, all his time with the old X-Men, being the original ones that they started as teenagers and they were molded by Professor Xavier. Then he's even reminiscing times with his new X-Men team. So he has been the one constant with the X-Men. He's always been there as the leader. At this point, even Professor Xavier had been gone for almost a year because he went to space when he met Lilandra. So this is the first time in the X-Men series that Cyclops will not be here. So Professor X is back. So he's the leader of the X-Men, but it's gonna be interesting to see who's the leader of the X-Men on the field without Cyclops. Because Professor X is the leader, but not while they're in action on the field. So this is gonna be interesting here. Now we start off in November. This issue 139 says here's welcome to the X-Men, Kitty Pryde. Hope you survive the experience. Real nice cover, and it starts off with the X-Men training in the danger room. Kitty Pryde officially has her X-Men costume. It looks pretty cool. It's very reminiscent of the classic X-Men costumes, but hers is black instead of blue. Okay, and then it says here, the newest and youngest member, Kitty Pryde, is her first time she sees the danger room in operation, and she's very impressed. And you see her talking with Professor X, and they're kind of watching the X-Men in action. We go to the next page, and Professor Xavier is talking to Kitty Pryde. He's telling her, this a healthy, altogether sensible reaction, Kitty. I have been surprised and concerned if you weren't scared of the danger room. And he tells her, but you won't be turned loose in here until you're ready, until I'm certain you can handle what the danger room throws at you. Here, Professor Xavier still chatting with Kitty Pryde, and he tells her, I'll make the necessary travel arrangements. In the meantime, I've one more surprise for you, Sprite. So we're kind of giving her a new name already. It's gonna be Sprite, is gonna be her X-Men name. She says, really? That's great, I think. Well, wait, what is it? And Professor X says, go with Storm, she'll show you. You see Kitty Pryde and Storm kind of walking around through downtown and in New York. And they're going, oh no, it looks like this might be Brooklyn or something. I'm not sure here. But anyways, they're passing by like little plazas, little stores. And where they're heading, it seems to be locked, the door. But Kitty Pryde can phase through walls, remember? So she's like, this isn't gonna be a problem. I just phase through here and open the door for Storm. So right here, we're setting up a relationship between Kitty Pryde and Storm, because Kitty Pryde does kind of look up to Storm. She's an older character, and she's kind of being like molded to be the leader in Cyclops' place. So it makes sense to bring the new character along with the leader so she can kind of learn the ropes. So where we are headed, turns out it's a dancing studio. So they take dancing classes here, more like ballet. And as they're walking up the stairs, Kitty Pryde is talking to Storm, and it's revealed that Kitty Pryde is genius level. So she says her IQ and what she studies, she's at a college level, but really she's barely about to start high school. So she's way ahead. So she's very smart for her age. And she says, when it comes to dancing and all this other stuff, I'm an equal to everybody, but studying, I'm like far above everybody. So I feel at a place like I can't relate to them because I'm so far ahead. And here I'm learning with them. So it's like a comfort zone here in this dancing class. We move on to see what the rest of the X-Men are doing. So at this time, Wolverine and Nightcrawler are paying a visit to an old friend of Wolverine's. And as she's walking into her apartment, coming from the market, she has her groceries and everything. She hears something funny. So she grabs a broom before she opens her door. And when she comes in, it's Wolverine and Nightcrawler. And she says, "Hey, it's you, Logan." So for the first time here, we find out what Wolverine's real name is. And it's Logan. So we have Nightcrawler say, "Oh, wow, your name is Logan. We did not know that." So it's already said here when she says Logan, it's in red. It's colored here, the speech bubble. So we know that every time we slowly chip away at finding out new things about Wolverine, because his past it's a mysterious past, so we don't know anything about it. So they slowly give us little bits of information about him. And by this time, it's about 30 issues into the series. Wolverine's been around a while now, and we're slowly seeing this as a trope that they are doing with him. As everybody kind of talks it out and stuff, Alpha Flight is explaining to Wolverine there's been a menace running around, and they show him this footprint. When Wolverine sees this footprint, we immediately have a flashback to Wolverine's first appearance, where he saw the Hulk and Wendigo fight. And that footprint reminds him of the Wendigo, which is like Marvel's take on the abominable snowman or something. So then we move on to issue Uncanny X-Men 140, which was printed back in December. We start off the issue with Kitty Pryde and Aurora leaving the dance studio. And as they're getting in the car, Kitty Pryde, since her power is to phase through things, she just goes in the car without opening the door. And gotta remember, she's like 13 here, barely finishing up junior high, starting high school. So she's still, she's still a kid, she's still youthful. So she doesn't know that these things she's doing are actually kind of a big deal. Like you can't just be doing stuff like that, because that will give people a reason to be like, "Oh, there goes a mutant," or whatever, right? Meanwhile, we go back to Canada, and Nightcrawler meets Wendigo for the first time, and he's just running away from him. And it's like, so we could build him up to see what a menace he is. While the rest of the team shows up here, Alpha Flight and Wolverine. So another big action scene, everybody's fighting, and we get to see how Wendigo, he's pretty powerful. He's almost Hulk level strength, but not quite. As they're fighting the Wendigo, we see he has this lady and her child like captured in this cave. They're almost trying to like hide from him. We don't know why he's saving them. I'm assuming is he wants to eat them or something, unless his human form somehow has some type of relationship to them. The rest of the Alpha Flight show up, and their shaman, he knows obviously like magic and witchcraft and stuff like that. He starts casting some type of spell on Wendigo, and it turns out Wendigo is a regular human guy. And it says here, before their eyes, this monster becomes a man, and we see him changing. So now we want to know, who is this cat? They ask him, "You're George Baptist," and he says, yes I am. Am I truly free of this curse? Is my nightmare ended? And the Alpha Flight team leader tells him, "No, actually, I'm afraid not. You're under arrest."
Oh my
and he says,
goodness.
"What?" So this issue was kind of just to show us like a little throwback of Wolverine and Wendigo fighting again. We jump into Uncanny X-Men issue 141. This is in January of 1981. So the cover here, very iconic, as Wolverine, got Kitty Pryde, and Wolverine got gray hair now, and Kitty Pryde is a grown-up already, right? She's already like in her 30s or whatever. But what's interesting here is in the background, you see a poster with a picture of the X-Men. It says they're Colossus apprehended, Cyclops slain, Storm apprehended. So if it says apprehended, we know they're alive. If it says slain, they're not going to be in the story because they're obviously dead. Okay, so yeah, very powerful scene. It totally reminds me of Terminator. Robots kind of took over. They decided to turn on mutants and on humans as well. In the first page, it says, "The street is Park Avenue." In the upper 70s, when Kate Pryde was a child, it was one of the swankiest neighborhoods in the city, if not the world. And we see Kitty Pryde here walking, And she's wearing this green suit with an M on it. And she's carrying a medical pack. Now in her thought bubbles, it says, Logan, I wish you'd picked a safer part of Manhattan for our rendezvous. So this is the slums right here. And I like how in the background on the building it says Days of Future Past. That looks pretty cool. You got the title, but it's integrated into the actual background. As Kitty Pryde is walking, we see she looks much older here. She's more grown up, obviously, like we saw on the cover. She's an adult, and she has a collar around her neck. We're not sure what this is yet. So as she's walking, she slips and falls. She drops her medical pack. Oh no, trouble. When she falls, there's some guys here, some drifters. And a guy with a red mohawk is kind of harassing her. She says, you'd be advised to let me go. I'm an official Sentinel business. The guy says, big deal. We hate Sentinels as much as we hate muties. And you're going to be a long time dying mutie. So right off the bat, he knows she's a mutant. And we're starting to find out right here, okay, how does he know this when she hasn't used her powers yet, right? So no time for discussion. She immediately kicks him in the midsection. As she kicks him, we see Wolverine in the background. He took care of the other guys that were there with this red mohawk guy. They meet up right here because Wolverine hands Kitty Pryde this thing called the jammer. Okay, so he hands it to Kitty Pryde. She grabs it. She leaves back to where she came from. She catches the bus, and what's interesting here is, look at the bus. It's a regular bus, but they don't run. So there's a bunch of horses are tied up with the bus, kind of like a chariot, but instead of a chariot, it's a full-size bus. And the horses are dragging the bus. Okay, so Kitty Pryde is in the bus. Like what we did here with the colors, you see everybody kind of like in shades of blue and gray. It's night. They're in the background, and only she is in color. We see her colorful green outfit and her red medical pack. One of these guys has a jacket and it has a big H on it. Now her suit has an M on it. Remember that. So this lets you know right away, like, okay, humans are identified with clothing that has H on it, and mutants have these green jumpsuits with a big M on them. We see Kitty Pryde walking here. Sure enough, she has an M on the back of her outfit, and she's now talking to a Sentinel. So she has to report back in. The Sentinels are almost like they're like guards or whatever, almost like a prison. And as she's walking by, you see a lot of tombstones here, all the dead people. See, it says Kurt Wagner, Scott Summers. Now, interesting thing here, it says Ben Grimm. Ben Grimm is not a mutant. He just has superpowers, but he was a human. So it shows you that when the machines took over, they're not biased. They want to take over, period. They want to be above humans and mutants. Kitty Pryde gets back to her little group. And in this group, we see Colossus, we see Storm. They're all chatting it up. And as they're chatting it up, Magneto shows up, and he's in a wheelchair now. So Magneto, something happened to him. He can no longer walk. I guess he's kind of like replacing Professor X, because Professor X is he has passed away at this point in the future. We're introduced to a new mutant, and Magneto is talking to her. He says, Rachel, child, so much depends on you. And she says, I won't fail you, Magneto. I've been meditating all day. Once the jammer is operational, we can start anytime. So that jammer is what Wolverine gave to Kitty Pryde. That's why it was so important they met up. This is a key component, no pun intended, but that jammer is like the key to something, right? It says here, then what are we waiting for? A moment, my wife. Who's saying my wife? We just see a hand holding Kitty Pryde's shoulder. We turn to the next page, and it's Colossus. So turns out in the future, Colossus and Kitty Pryde are an item. They're all both full-grown adults at this point, and you see she jumps up to kiss him for like good luck. And obviously Colossus is a big guy, so he's pretty tall, and they're both adults here. Obviously Colossus a little older. He has gray hair already. She's not at that point of her life yet. She hasn't started getting gray hairs yet. She's a little younger than him. Okay, so later on that day, Magneto is talking to this character named Franklin. It says here, I'm making the final adjustment, sir. As you know, these inhibitor collars we wear neutralize our superpowers. But now with this jammer, it should neutralize the inhibitor. So Wolverine was passing this jammer to Kitty Pryde because with that, they were going to be able to block the signal to the collars. And if those collars don't work, the mutants can now use their superpowers. So this is big. This gives them a fighting chance. Now that everybody has their superpowers, Rachel Summers, we just know her name is Rachel Summers, but we don't quite know who she is yet because we're in the future. So she's, whatever her superpowers is, using them with Kitty Pryde's powers, it's allowing Kitty Pryde to kind of go back in time through this like vortex or whatever. Now we go back to the past, being our present time. And we see Kitty Pryde walking into the danger room while everybody's training. So this is Kitty Pryde's first time in the danger room. So now she gets a feel for it, right? Like how it is to be an X-Men. And so she gets to see some action. And so we could kind of see how she does when she's in the thick of it. Turns out the kid's a natural. She passed this, and not only did she pass it, but she made it look easy. So Wolverine and Nightcrawler are just cracking up because they're like, oh man, Professor Xavier was trying to, do the works to make it a little bit difficult for her. But it was pretty simple, so clearly they need to put her on a more higher difficulty level in the danger. They underestimated her. She's ready to be on a little bit more difficult level. As we're celebrating, Kitty Pryde did really good for her first try in the danger room. Something hits her, boom, and she kind of just faints. And we see Kitty Pryde's soul from the future is coming into the present time. So we're like, what's going on here? Like, we see all this pink and this vortex. Now we find out what happened is Kitty Pryde's soul, her spirit from the future, meaning her more mature self, went into her younger body of the past. So now she has her young body in its prime, but with her experience of older version of Kitty Pryde. Kitty Pryde is explaining to them, I'm from the future, but I'm in my present body. And I'm here to tell you guys that the fact remains that on Halloween, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants will murder President candidate Robert Kelly, along with Charles Xavier and Moira McTaggart. Kelly's assassination will set in motion a sequence of events that 30 years from now will accumulate to the destruction of the world in a nuclear holocaust. I'm here to tell you guys we need to prevent this. So serious shit is going down. She basically went to the past to warn everybody so that they could change the future. She explains Senator Kelly gets killed, and what happens from there is that the humans respond by passing the Sentinel Act, where they can make more and more Sentinels to defend themselves. The Sentinels grow a mind of their own and decide to take over the world. We go back to the future. In the future, the Sentinels find out that the mutants now have their powers again. So the X-Men, they're all trying to escape. But at this time, Kitty Pryde's body, it's unconscious because her soul is in the past controlling young Kitty Pryde. So they have to carry her out of here, and they have to stop her from getting killed in any way because it ruins the whole plan. Back at the current time, we see a young lady walking by. She goes into this room, and it turns out she's a shapeshifter. It's Mystique. And in this room is the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. So she's going to meet up with them as they plan this assassination. We are at this meeting here. We're talking politics, what laws to pass. And Senator Kelly is really pushing for this registration of mutants. So he wants every mutant to register and kind of like when you get an ID, say what powers you have and this and that, right? So we know where everybody lives and what powers they have, so they know what they're dealing with when they're gonna talk to you. And they're saying that's just a total invasion of privacy. And he says, no, we need to know if you're a loaded weapon. Just like when you buy a gun, we need to know that you own one. Think of this as like the Civil War storyline with the Avengers, but way before the Civil War storyline. The X-Men did it first. But As we have this debate, yes, it's a little heated, but it is civil. Then the walls come crashing down. Turns out it's the Brotherhood of Evil Mutant, so their plan is unfolding. At this point, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, it's a new roster, so these are all new characters that are at least making their first appearance in an X-Men title. They may have made appearances in other books before, but not here. So this one is Mystique. She had previously appeared in Miss Marvel. This is her first time as an X-Men reader that you will be introduced to her. And she's clearly the leader of the team, which is pretty cool because we have a girl as the leader, and we didn't see that a lot at this time. And she says right here, as an apt question, Senator Kelly, and one with its own answer, for we all know what the first Cro-Magnon did to the last Neanderthal. She says, my colleagues and I comprise the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. We are your future human resistance force. Okay, so she's introducing the group pretty much. As she's giving this speech, the X-Men show up because they did take Kitty Pryde's warning serious enough. Now we're headed for a big showdown between the two as a way to kind of show what each of these new villains, what their powers are and what their level of fighting is, like how good they fare against the X-Men. While all the fighting is going on, Moira McTaggart grabs Professor X and she pushes his wheelchair. And this police officer, she says, I'm here to help you guys. She's guiding them to safety. As she takes them to a secluded area, she sprays McTaggart and Professor X. They pass out. Once they pass out, it's Mystique, the shapeshifter. So we see how she uses her powers and how dangerous she can be. Once they're passed out, now this other character named Destiny, she is right here with Mystique. And she tells her, because her power is to kind of foresee how things are gonna plan out or kind of see the future basically, but not too far into the future. Hence the name Destiny. She tells Mystique, there's something wrong here. I cannot completely tell you how this is gonna unfold because there's an anomaly. Someone here is not from this time stream. So that kind of manipulates the outcome that I'm seeing is no longer there. Now it has changed to an uncertainty. Back in the future, we still see the X-Men trying to avoid Sentinels. And again, Kitty Pryde is still passed out. Colossus is carrying her because she's still in the past and in our present time. And Wolverine is telling the group, we need to attack the Baxter Building. In our time, the Baxter Building is where the Fantastic Four are. But right now, it's the headquarters for the Sentinels. Once they get to the building, Wolverine sees the doors are locked. You gotta remember, Storm is a master lockpicker because she used to be a thief back when she was in her youth. She wasn't such a good person. She kind of had to do what she had to do to survive out on the streets and stuff. So she picks the lock and they make their way into the building. Here, Storm says the coast is clear. So now letting the rest of the group in. And thankfully, the elevators and stuff here still work pretty fine. Wolverine is seeing Mystique fight with Nightcrawler. So we have two Nightcrawlers. He doesn't know which is which. He pops his claws. When he does so, Storm says, sheath your claws, Wolverine. And Wolverine starts arguing with her. So an interesting thing here is Storm says, I am leader of the X-Men. While that is so, you will use your claws when I command, no other time. And he says, I wouldn't have took that from Cyclops, and I ain't taking it from you. So for the first time here, it's officially revealed she is the new leader now that Cyclops has retired. As Nightcrawler and Mystique are fighting, she turns back to her true form. And Nightcrawler pauses because he's kind of shocked. He's like, wow, like, is this how you really look? If this is your true form, we are very similar. Why do we look alike so much? And Mystique says, you want to know? Ask your mother, Wagner. And he says, he's telling her, like, how do you know my name? So we're already sowing the seeds, giving the reader something to think about. Like, they do kind of look alike. Now we are in the future again. The X-Men are still in the Baxter building and they encounter a Sentinel. Wolverine attacks this guy and he immediately gets fried. This is the iconic picture we've all seen. Storm runs to the rescue and the Sentinel kills her as well. Now we show this in a silhouette and no blood because back in these times you couldn't show certain things in comics. It would be too graphic. So the artist had to find a way around it. So he kind of did it just in the shadows, but we could still clearly see what just went down. So all the X-Men are dying left and right. Colossus happens to knock the Sentinel out of the building. Here, Rachel is holding Kitty Pryde because she's still unconscious because she's in the past. But she feels a sadness because she says she can feel that Wolverine and Storm just died because she kind of has some type of telekinetic power, much like Jean Grey and Professor Xavier. So as far as the future, it's looking very dim. Like on their end, it looks like they kind of failed. The one thing they're holding on to is that they do still have Kitty Pryde's body and it's still alive, which means Kitty Pryde's soul still in the past, and hopefully she can still do something in the past that will affect and change their future. We go back to current times and we see here Kitty Pryde is hiding behind a sofa. She's seen Destiny pointing a crossbow at Senator Kelly. She says, "My colleagues have been defeated, yet victory will still be ours with your death." Kelly says, "Murdering me will accomplish nothing. Yes, people will fear you, but they will not cower to you. They will fight back and you'll make things worse," basically. What he's trying to tell her. She responds with, "Possibly, but you are a greater threat alive anyways." So as this is happening, Kitty Pryde runs towards her before she gets to shoot. She gets to shoot Senator Kelly, pushes her arm and she tells him, "Duck." Destiny misses. He moves out of the way. In doing this, she's kind of zoning out. She has a headache. This is the soul of future Kitty Pryde leaving back to the future and Kitty Pryde becoming back her teenage self again. So she's like, "Oh, what happened? What's going on?" She's not aware of what's going on because it wasn't her. It was the future her. But that just means everything has been fixed. It won't be so terrible because we saved Senator Kelly. Senator Kelly looks at her and says, "Who are you, child?" Storm shows up and says, "I am Storm, leader of the X-Men, and I suspect this child is the person who just saved your life." So for the time being, there is peace with humans and mutants. Now the ending to this story is a little tricky because we fast forward a month later. Remember, Senator Kelly is good friends with Sebastian Shaw. So they have both been invited to the White House to meet up with some people here. Now that Shaw and Kelly are talking to what is believed to be like a top secret CIA agent, he says, recommending is dangerous. This may be unconstitutional, even criminal. Someone who owes his life to mutants wants to pass these laws to attack them. And Joe Kelly says, "Well, mutants are the reason my life was endangered to begin with." So you gotta remember, before this story arc, there was the Dark Phoenix story arc, and Sebastian Shaw was talking to Kelly about, let's do this Sentinel program. Let's revive it. The Sentinels were these robots that were around a few years earlier. They have no longer existed. The government stopped making them, and he kind of wants to bring them back. And we saw what happens in the future if you bring them back. So the story kind of ends there, and we're left kind of with a cliffhanger. If you're a longtime X-Men reader, you obviously know they come back eventually. We start using Sentinels again. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun reading it. This was a good one. Go ahead and hit that like button. Let me know what you thought about it in the comment section down below. And I'll check you guys out next time.